Can you tell me a little bit more about the Gunditj Mirring Traditional Owners Corporation?
We're a PBC, a prescribed body corporate. We received a native title determination in 2007, and also we have a shared determination with the Eastern Maar Aboriginal Corporation a little bit further east, which is what we call Part B, and that was a determination sorted out in 2011. So we essentially manage the native title rights of our members of our organisation.
I take it that you are Gunditj Mara?
Yes, I'm a Gunditj Mara person. I'm a Gunditj Mara traditional owner. I have ancestors who I can demonstrate links with and recognised native title holder.
Do you know for how long the Gunditj Mara have been in the area, the location where you are at the moment?
Look, many thousands of years. As always, it's as technology improves, dates tend to get pushed back. We just found that out with some volcanic activity just recently. But many thousands of years. We'll be looking at a fish trap today that's 6,500 years. Certainly people were around well and truly before that, but this is a geological lava flow which didn't settle. It erupted around about 37,000 years ago and settled in its current shape and form around about 8,000 years ago. So Gunditj Mara people quite clearly lived here for many thousands of years. We have midden sites on other parts of our country, down on the coastal areas where, again, there's a scientifically accepted date of at least 12,000 years, and that was after the sea levels were a lot lower. So a lot of the evidence for antiquity of probably out under the water there somewhere.
Did you grow up in the area where you now find yourself, or did you grow up somewhere else?
A bit of a mixture. I sometimes, with my family, we shifted to Melbourne. I think from when I was about 5, I started school in Melbourne in 1960, and then shifted back home in 1965. I lived here until lived here and worked on country until 1984. I was a National Parks Ranger, and then I went up to the Mallee for a couple of years, and then I spent around about 8 or 9 years in Gurrywerd, or the Grampians National Park, and subsequent to that I shifted to Canberra for 9 years and worked with what was Australian National Parks and Wildlife Service, and back home since 2002. So you had about 18 years away and a couple of times in Melbourne prior to that. I live in Portland, but my office is in Hayward. It's only 25 kilometres away.
From where you live to where you are at the moment, how far would that be approximately? Around
about 35 kilometres.
Could you give me a brief description of how large is the area that we're talking about, or will be talking about, involving the Gunditj National Park?
Yeah, the total area for the World Heritage boundaries, which incorporates the national park plus the Aboriginal owned properties, is nearly 9,000 hectares. Around about 6,000 of that is the national park, the Budgebim National Park, and 3,000 hectares primarily freehold, Aboriginal freehold title. There's a couple of exceptions. We have a little bit of land at the Lake Condah Mission that's under the Commonwealth Aboriginal Land Rights Act. This is the Gunditj property. We've acquired this over a number of years. I think the first part of the property was purchased through the Indigenous Land Corporation in around about 2006. We then acquired a little bit more of the property around about 2008, and in 2014 the third part of this property. So this is Gunditj, which means water crossing, and we've managed this as a as the sign says, it's an Indigenous protected area, so management for the protection of its natural and cultural values.
Roughly how far are you from Melbourne?
Around about 360 kilometres to the west, pretty well due west.
Are there any significant townships? First of all, any significant large townships nearby?
The largest town nearby or largest city nearby is Warrnambool, which is about 90 k's to the east of here. Mount Gambier, which is over in the South Australia, is about 80 kilometres to the west.
Are there any smaller townships nearby?
Lots of small towns nearby, and Hayward's certainly one of them. Hayward's a town of around about 1,300 people population-wise. Portland is around about 8,000. It's nearby as well, and we're also not far from Hamilton, which is around about 9,000 people. So we're south of Hamilton.
Is it fair to say, Denis, that apart from the 18 years I think you mentioned that you spent away from where you are now, that for most of your life you lived in the area?
That's correct, yeah, most of my life. 18 years, around about 5 years in my early days in Melbourne, and a couple of years in Melbourne after leaving school. I've worked as a national park ranger down this way in Discovery Bay Coastal Park and also Lower Glenelg National Park. I was acting ranger in charge at Budge Bim National Park when it was known as Mount Eccles National Park, again back in the early 80s. So I have worked out here quite regularly over the years, and worked on country as well, which is always important.
Thank you very much, Denis. Now looking behind you, looking south from what I can see, it looks relatively flat.
Yes, it is. Most of the lava flow is relatively flat. There's some geological formations within there, and there's no hills or as such, other than Budge Bim itself, which was collapsed. Extinct. It's not extinct. It's a volcano that's still active apparently, but other than that, yeah, it's fairly flat country.
I can see you're standing in front of a background there. Where are we in terms of the national park? Is that on the edge of the national park? We're a few kilometres from the national park, and where the fires were, probably about 4 kilometres. We're actually further south than where we were at the top of the Curtinage property. We're down a little bit lower. Has there been some burning carried out in the background there?
Yes, last Friday we did a cultural burn. This is a wetland that's behind me, and we burn for a number of reasons. One, for fire protection, fuel reduction. We also do cultural burn. So this particular fire, we wanted to burn around wetlands to see if we could uncover other fish trap systems that we may not have recorded before. And also there's an environmental component of it as well, that we want to get the health of country back, and cultural burning is certainly an important part.
Do you undertake cultural burning?
It's a partnership arrangement with the Forest Fire Management section of DELP. They certainly assist us. We do all the planning that's required. We have a good neighbour policy. We don't want to burn any of our neighbours out, or ourselves for that matter. So we do a lot of burning. This fire, which was conducted last Friday, was postponed from the week before because of predicted high winds. So we have some flexibility there, but we work very closely in partnership with both the Country Fire Authority and the Forest Fire Management sections to ensure that our burns, whilst they're culturally important and also environmentally important, just to make sure that we don't cause undue damage.
You mentioned DELWP. Now that's obviously a department. Could you give me its full name?
Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning.
Does the cultural burning take place as part of an overall fire management plan?
Yes, it is. We've developed, it's still in its draft stage at the moment, but what we call Ween Yarkeen, which essentially means fire dreaming. So again, that's a partnership arrangement between the CFA, between DELP, ourselves, and the Windamara Aboriginal Corporation, who are another landowner within the Budgebim World Heritage Area.
Does it take place throughout the year?
Primarily in the autumn and into the winter. Because of the nature of the lava flow, it's not advisable to do much burning in the spring. You need to be sure that there's going to be some good rains after you burn. The fires can get in underground, under the rocks, and in cracks, and pop up, a week or two later. So primarily we burn during the autumn and into the winter. I think last year we burnt either late June or early July. Was one of our burns, but we are looking at wanting to expand our burning season, the window of opportunity. So we'll start to work on maybe some spring burning in the next couple of years.
In terms of identification of the areas where the cultural burning takes place, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, look, we have as part of our Indigenous Protected Areas Plan of Management, fire management is an important part. So this Ween Yarkeen plan will identify potential burn areas for the next 3 years to again ensure that we have a coordinated approach to burning. We're not burning the same areas necessarily.
I understand that in 2019 to 2020 that some fires occurred in and around the Gunditjmara National Park.
Yeah, that's correct, Andrew. The fires first ignited on the 20th of December. I'm standing on the Muldoons property, and the fire was caused by a lightning strike approximately about 1 kilometre to the left of me, or to the south, and it burnt for approximately till about the 30th of December.
Can I see in the background some trees that were affected by that fire?
You certainly can. You can see the impact of the fire. This is the northern edge of the fire line. To my right is the Darlets Creek, which is approximately 5 or 6 metres wide and had a reasonable amount of water in it. The fire never escaped to the north. The trees that you see to my left and behind me, there's quite a few trees in there, tall eucalypts, particularly manna gums, that weren't fire impacted or had minor impact, and there are a few trees that the canopies have been burnt out. It was a fire that sort of got hot in spots, but not completely hot.
Did it burn close to a significant area from your point of view?
The first fire burned just over 800 hectares, and that was under control by the 31st of December. But on the evening of the 30th, directly behind me, and probably about 3 or 4 kilometres into the national park, there was another lightning strike that ignited the second fire. It burnt approximately 5,000 hectares, a little bit over a few days, over a week or more, yeah.
Did the fire reach where you're standing now, or was it the clump of trees behind you?
The clump of trees behind me, and in front of me there's some trees that are about 40 metres away from me. So it did burn up and around here, but it didn't burn where I'm standing.
I understand from here that we're going to be going to a site that is of particular significance to the Gunditjmara.
That's correct, yes. We're going to what we call the Muldoons fish trap. It has a scientifically accepted date of 6,600 years when it was first constructed. As I tell people that there aren't many things left on this planet that were constructed that are older than that.
Do the fish traps form part of the Gunditjmara cultural landscape?
That's correct. The World Heritage listing, to get World Heritage listing, you have to have demonstrate outstanding universal value. You have to have a world value. Our value essentially is that we have one of the world's oldest aquaculture systems out here. We have, as I said, a scientifically accepted date of 6,600 years. There are quite a lot of fish traps around the world, there's lots in Australia, probably some that may be older, but we're actually talking about aquaculture here. We're talking about farming fish, a complex system of diverting and manipulating the natural system to enhance and increase the food resource over many thousands of years.
When was the Gunditj Mara cultural landscape listed with UNESCO?
July the 6th, 2019, it was officially announced at a meeting of the World Heritage Committee in Baku in Azerbaijan.
How extensive is the cultural landscape?
Well, it covers an area of about 40 kilometres as the creek flows and the lava flow flows, and it varies in width and depth. Where we're standing at the moment is a very wide area. It's probably about 5 kilometres across, and other parts of the lava flow, it's sometimes only 300 or 400 metres in width. So it varies a bit.
What sort of impact did the fires have on country?
Look, particularly the first fire, it was, we were certainly much more fortunate than other parts of the country. We had a few hot days, but we also had some relatively mild conditions for out of that first week. I'd guess that we had 5 days of mild temperatures and not too much wind speed. With 2 or 3 days were fairly concerning, so the fire, as you can see here behind me, the fire up this end of it just trickled through. It didn't roar through the bush, it trickled through, and we were in a fortunate position that we could control it reasonably okay.
What sort of people were involved in fighting the fires?
Again, to the right of me is the creek. Over the other side of the creek, I think on Monday the 30th, which was Monday the 30th of December, was an extremely hot day. It was predicted for 41 degrees, at which it reached. It was up to 70 km/h winds, which also occurred. We had, I think, 5 or 6 CFA tankers over the other side of the creek into the sort of the more conventional farmland, waiting for the fire to jump, which fortunately it didn't. But so we had CFA crews. Behind me we had a hose line from the lake, from the creek, a hose line of around about 2 kilometres that was run down beside the fire retardant line. That was our eastern edge, and we had quite a number of DELP and CFA crews, and also some of our rangers out on that fire line, with hoses at the ready. And the good news was that the fire line held.
Can you just describe the area for me where you are at the moment?
Okay, we're in the right into the Muldoon's aquaculture system, the Muldoon's fish trap. I'm standing at the entrance to where the water actually ran into the system. To the left of me is a system that's about 300 metres in length. There are 2 channels that interconnect, and then they run around the back. And it was a place where fish were farmed, fish were ponded. It was an intensive aquaculture system that we have here, and it's a very complex system. To the right of me, we're on the southeastern edge of Tayrek, or Lake Conda. To the right of me, on the edge, around the edge of the lake, they operated at various levels, but there are in excess of 70 individual fish trap systems around the lake to my right. In front of me, over the back a little bit, some stone house sites where people were living, and there are about 10 house sites here that I'm aware of. I think there's probably more, but certainly at least 10 here, and again around the edge of the lake there's quite a number.
Is this all part of the Budj Bim cultural landscape?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, this was a really important part of the World Heritage process, in that this is the place where we got the 6,600-year-old date for the system, and so that shaped our thinking and our World Heritage nomination because of what we found here, what the archaeologists had found here.
Did the fire come through this area? It looks like it did.
It certainly did. Again, it burnt through. Some of the trees behind me have some fairly serious fire damage to them. Some have only been burnt at the base, and quite a few of them are untouched or very, very, very little damage by fire. So yeah, again we're in the northern boundary of the Muldoon's fire. I think they called it the Lake Conda fire. Actually, there was the official title, and so we're at the northern edge of it, and this is where it trickled through. It didn't come roaring through.
Did this fire burn itself out naturally, or was it extinguished by the firefighting crews?
The firefighting crew spent, I think, around about 10 days here. There was no follow-up rains or anything, so it was really, I think, after Monday the 30th of December, once the fire was under control essentially, and it was more about keeping an eye on things after that rather than actively fighting the fire.
In fighting the fire, what sort of equipment was used? Was there any aerial firefighting?
Certainly was. There was quite a lot of I don't really know the technical terms, but certainly there was quite a few fixed wing smaller planes that were bombing the fire, but they also got the Boeing 737 in. It dropped retardant on the eastern edge, on the eastern line. We don't want and we don't encourage heavy earth moving machinery in on the lava flow. We wouldn't want a bulldozer to accidentally knock over a 6,600-year-old fish trap. So DELP and the CFA, and they should be congratulated, come up with an alternative method that actually demonstrated that you can use other techniques for fire suppression other than a D8 or something like that. The fire retardant, the retardant line held. We also had hose lays that ran for about 2 kilometres down the line as well. There's quite a few DELP and CFA crew and our rangers that were on the hoses along that hose line. And on Monday the 30th, the 41-degree day, up to 70 km/h winds, no mineral earth line, this fire retardant and hose lines, it actually held, and so it was a win all around. I reckon it was a really good news story that we, as I said, the agencies should be congratulated for holding their nerve. I know that they are under pressure. You know, but there were fires across the state and interstate, probably certainly more severe than here, but nevertheless the local agencies were under a bit of pressure trying this new technique, and thank goodness it worked.
Was there an incident control room managing all of the response to the fire?
Yeah, there certainly was. I was called in as a sort of a cultural heritage advisor. I was called in, I'm pretty sure it was Sunday the 22nd. The fire, this fire behind me really only, it was a lightning strike on Friday evening, the 20th, but it really got going the next day. So I was in at the Incident Control Centre as a Cultural Heritage Advisor pretty much every day for about 10 or 12 days. I also I was extremely impressed by what seemed to be, from an outsider's point of view, a well coordinated, well planned. People knew their roles and they just got on with their job. And I think that again they do a wonderful job in coordinating these responses. The other role I had was to attend community meetings. We had 4 community meetings. This is the broader community throughout the region. And on that Sunday the 19th, which was the day before the Danger Day, we were at the Bessie Bell the Bessie Bell Community Hall, and probably expecting a bit of a grilling about you know what we're putting into place for fire suppression. That's when we talked about the fire line, and we again got a good response, I reckon. I think the community, the broader community, understood what we're trying to do out here. I think the other point is that from what we can see, that to put a bulldozer in within the lava flow is not a very efficient way of fighting a fire either. You know, one of the local bulldozer operators reckoned the hardest work that he and his machine have ever done was on parts of the lava flow, 10 or 12 years ago, and that was work that wasn't just, you know, clearing rock that day. It was on an existing track. They were just widening it up, so it's hard work. It's well and truly after the event. So these other techniques are not only are they culturally important, but they also seem to be a much more efficient way of doing it on lava flow country.
Does it appear to you that the lower vegetation is growing back okay?
Yes, it is. Yeah. We've just they're not here now. They've just left, but our Budge Bim Rangers have been out here doing some work. We because this is a place that we take a lot of visitors. We do tours out here. Now that we've got the vegetation down, we really want to keep it down. So they've been out doing some work on bracken and some other plants out here to keep these aquaculture systems more visible.
I understand that an unexpected outcome of the fire was that the fire uncovered some new stone arrangements. Is that correct?
It certainly is correct. Where I'm standing, this is the path that we walk into the Muldoon system. We walk into the left here. Behind me, about 20 to 22 metres behind me, was a system. Now, we've been out here for quite a few years. We've had this property since the 1980s. It's been researched prior to that and subsequent to that time. There was a fish trap that was recorded, but it was about 140 metres from where it is. The fire actually uncovered that. We hadn't, as I said, we've been out here many a time working, taking tours, and the fire actually uncovered a system that we didn't realise was there. Yeah, and it was part of this broader, larger scale aquaculture system.
Denis, do you feel that there are some lessons that one has learnt from the most recent fires about looking after the land?
Yeah, certainly. I think the number one lesson has been the great relationships we have as traditional owners. And we've worked on these for a long time. It's not something that occurred just prior to the fires. It's, you know, we work with the Catchment Management Authority, with the CFA, with Parks for, you know, since 2002 onwards. So we have these robust partnerships, and we have a lot of trust and confidence in each other that we can you know, sometimes make the hard decisions. As I said, the fire controllers, they had to make a hard decision about what fire suppression method they could use. They did listen to our concerns and our advice, and it worked. You know, so look, we have really good partnerships. We train together, we work together, we fight fires together, and we also this latest virus thing has slowed us down a bit, but we were going to have a celebration, a thank you to all the firefighters out on country. Probably in March we'd planned to do that, but obviously it couldn't go ahead. We'll do it at some later stage.
You mentioned earlier that it used to be called the Mount Eccles National Park. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. As part of our native title determination, we also decided to restore the traditional name, Budgebim. And we, as part of that native title determination, we as Gunditjmara have a co-management agreement with the state government to manage the park. We have a board of management that consists of a Gunditjmara majority, and that's been in place since 2007.
What does Budgebim mean? What's the translation of Budgebim?
Yeah, Budgebim is where the volcano that erupted around about 37,000 years ago, and Budgebim means big head. And if you're out on some of the flat country around the park and you look across it, it just looks like a large head sticking up out of the landscape. Yeah, it's a relatively flat landscape, pretty much right round it, but Budgebim certainly stands out.
I understand that not only did the fire uncover some of the stone arrangements that were not previously uncovered and now discovered, so to speak, but it has also given you or the corporation an opportunity to do some further work in relation to the fish trap stone arrangements.
Yes, that's correct. We've been working with the spatial mapping section of DELP, based in Melbourne. Prior to the fires, they'd received some funding to do a project, to do a LiDAR survey of the area. Essentially, LiDAR is about measuring and identifying where the ground surface is, and it has the ability or the capacity to strip away with the software to strip away the vegetation and just leave images of the ground, so 3D, 2D areas. So we are looking forward to using this system. They did their aerial photography after the fires. Again, the fires cleared a lot of the vegetation, so we think we'll have some comparisons about burnt country and unburnt country. We believe we'll be able to either identify undiscovered sites or at least have a predictive model about where sites might be, such as the fish traps. And also other agencies will be able to use the technology as well, the imagery, for firefighting purposes or fire planning purposes, for water purposes, where's the water running, biodiversity purposes. So it's not just about cultural heritage, but certainly that was the focus of it. So we're looking forward to using this technology. We've seen snippets of it. It certainly does work, and we hope to utilise that in a wide range of management practices and planning over the next few years.
Am I right in thinking that some of the fires commenced in or burnt in the national park?
Yeah, the second fire that was caused by lightning strikes on Monday the 30th in the late evening. It was right in the middle of the national park pretty much, and it burnt around not quite 5,000 hectares, about 4,600 hectares of national park, and we lost about 1,600 hectares of we had 1,400 hectares, sorry, that was impacted by fire. We didn't lose any or very little assets, a bit of fencing, an old storage shed that was an old wool shed that burnt down, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of assets that were lost either on the park or our properties nor other private property.
I take it you could see the smoke from where you were?
Yeah, certainly could. It was fairly thick at times, and I think the other thing I noticed that as I come out, particularly out here, out to Muldoons and Tayrak or Lake Conda, that you could see, where trees were smouldering. So, over the back behind me, about 2 kilometres, about 1.5 kilometres, was what we call Murphy's Hut, and there's quite a few old elm trees and pine trees there. And I remember coming out pretty much after the fire was under control, and seeing the fair bit of smoke coming up from the pines that were burning there, for example.
Is there anything else you would like to mention?
No, I just like to reiterate that I think that this was really a partnership arrangement. As I said, we worked closely with these agencies prior to this. I think it's reinforced that we all have a valuable role to play in looking after country and improving country, and we look forward to even better cooperation and consideration into the future with. But I think the agencies, the staff on the ground, the staff at the Incident Control Centre must be congratulated, because they held out in a pretty tough call, really.
I understand that behind you is one of the fish traps?
Yes, that's correct, Andrew. Right behind me, you can see the opening of the channel. There's a V shape here that directs the water in, and it runs in the channel beyond there. It then curves. There's another channel over around about 20 metres across this way. They connect up. They go back and around, and they back through. Over the back even further is a sort of a pond that was used to store the fish, in eels in particular. So this system actually goes for about 300 metres. It's a very extensive system, and right behind me is what we call the Muldoons fish trap, and that nice little green patch in the middle of it is where they did the excavation that came up with the date of first construction of 6,600 years ago.
Do the engineering works tell us something about the lifestyle of the people back then?
Yeah, most certainly. There are quite a number of lava flows in Western Victoria, but this is the only one that has the scale of fish traps, of stone house sites. One of our properties, the Alambie property, has 146 recorded stone house sites. So we're talking about a small village out there on the edge of the wetland, and we have quite a really great water supply. That's why Gunditjmara people were able to invest time, effort and resources into these more permanent structures. It was because there was an ever reliable water supply. In fact, the creek, which is just behind me and to my left, its European name is Darlot's Creek. Its traditional name is Kalara, and Kalara means always there, and it's very appropriately named creek. That this creek never runs dry. It does get a little bit sluggish, but it has such a large catchment area that Gunditjmara people, as I said, were able to invest time, effort and resource into these permanent structures. Over to my left here, there's about 6 stone house sites on the ridge beside me, and other parts around here as well. So people lived a sedentary lifestyle, a very permanent lifestyle, had access to very good food resource, not just the fish, but certainly the animals and ducks and swans and eggs and all sorts of things. Lots of fruit and vegetables that in the bush tucker out here. So a very well balanced lifestyle, and they were able to devote more time to the other practices such as their spiritual side of life, children, education, and social life. So it was very good.
It's a very important part of our heritage.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think that we want to share it with the broader Australian public and community, and internationally as well. We do run tours here. We have Budge Bim tours, and we're always proud to show what we have out here on country. It is a robust bit of country. It's a lot of stone, so it can stand the impact of tourism. But we certainly want to educate people. It's not so much, there's certainly a commercial aspect to it, but it's also about letting people know that not every Aboriginal community in the country was nomadic, and that. And I think here and other places certainly shows that people, where they had the good resource, they had the ingenuity to manipulate a natural system, but not to the point that it was not reversible, the damage.
And thankfully fire resilient as well.
And very much fire resilient as well, yes, certainly in parts.
Thank you very much, Denis. I think we can finish on that note.
Yep.